The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is one of England's most famous ghost stories, centered on the spirit of Lady Dorothy Walpole, who died in the hall in 1726. According to the story, Dorothy was the sister of Britain's first Prime Minister, Robert Walpole, and the second wife of the volatile Charles Townshend. After Townshend discovered her alleged infidelity with Lord Wharton, he punished her by locking her away in a room at Raynham Hall, where she remained prisoner until her death from smallpox. Sightings of a ghostly figure in a brown dress began in the early 19th century, with witnesses, including guests and residents, describing a luminous woman with empty dark sockets for eyes. These encounters solidified the legend of the tormented Lady Dorothy, forever bound to the halls and the staircase of her former home. The haunting gained international notoriety on September 19, 1936, when photographers Captain Hubert Provend and his assistant Indre Shura were on an assignment for Country Life magazine. While setting up to photograph the hall's grand staircase, Shura allegedly saw a vapory form descending the steps. He shouted to Provend, who quickly took a picture. When the negative was developed, it revealed a faint, ethereal figure that seemed to float down the staircase. Published in Country Life and later in Life magazine, the image became one of the most infamous paranormal photographs ever taken. The picture has been the subject of intense debate for decades. Believers champion it as genuine proof of the supernatural, while skeptics argue it's likely the result of a deliberate double exposure, grease smeared on the lens, or even the superimposition of the statue of the Virgin Mary onto the image of the empty staircase. This is the story of the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. Let's get spooky. Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny, and we are back with another spooky, disturbing story. Before we get to today's story, let's make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Let's make sure that you like and share this video. The case of the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is a cornerstone of British paranormal folklore. It's a narrative that has captured public imagination for nearly 2 centuries. First, let's talk about the woman at the heart of the legend, Lady Dorothy Walpole. She was born in 1686, and she was a member of a politically powerful and prominent family, being the sister of Sir Robert Walpole, the influential Whig politician widely regarded as Great Britain's first Prime Minister. In 1713, she became the second wife of Charles Townshend, a notable agricultural innovator known as Turnip Townshend. Turnip, not a very good nickname. Together they had at least 7 children, and she presided as the mistress of the family seat, Raynham Hall in Norfolk. On March 29th, 1726, at the age of 39, Lady Dorothy Townshend died of smallpox. The legend claims that she had a tragic and miserable life. However, the record suggests otherwise. It suggests that Dorothy lived a happy and fulfilling life and was well loved. When she died, she was described as an elegant and accomplished woman with engaging manners whose death was a great loss to her husband and her family. The legend of the Brown Lady is a very different narrative that's steeped in tragedy and domestic tyranny. The court tale centers on an alleged adulterous affair with the notorious libertine Lord Wharton. Upon his discovery, the famously hot-tempered Charles Townshend is said to have punished his wife with extreme cruelty. The legend states that he locked her away in a remote part of Raynham Hall, forbidding her from seeing her children and effectively erasing her from society. This story often features conflicting accounts of her death. Instead of smallpox, the folklore often describes several violent or tragic alternatives: that she was deliberately starved to death, that she died from a fall down the grand staircase, either by accident, self-unaliving, or being pushed by her enraged husband, or that she simply wasted away from a broken heart. Some of the more elaborate versions of the tale even claim that her funeral in 1726 was a sham and that she lived for many, many more years as a solitary prisoner within the walls of her own home. The difference between the historical record and the popular story is important. The narrative of a powerful woman being secretly imprisoned and murdered by her husband while her politically influential brother lived just miles away strains credulity. The story contains all the classic elements of the Gothic tradition, which was popular in the 19th century when the first ghost sightings occurred. The narrative features a tyrannical and violent husband, a beautiful and wronged woman locked away, a sprawling and isolated country house, and a dark, suspicious death. This suggests that the story of the Brown Lady was shaped by the cultural and literary tendencies of the Victorian era, rather than any factual occurrence. The legend is a ghost story, but it's also a form of social commentary, reflecting deep-seated fears about female agency and marital fidelity and the unchecked power of aristocratic patriarchs within the domestic sphere. The truth of the legend is in the cultural renaissance as a cautionary tale about the vulnerability of women, even those in the highest social standing. Before the famous photograph, the legend of the Brown Lady was built upon a century of anecdotal evidence and dramatic eyewitness accounts. These stories were passed down through generations, and they established the ghost's identity and terrifying characteristics. The formal beginnings of the haunting dates to a Christmas gathering at Raynham Hall in 1835. According to an account by guest Lucia C. Stone, several attendees, including Colonel Loftus and Mr. Hawkins were retiring for the night when they saw the figure of a lady in a dated brown dress. The following evening, Colonel Loftus claimed a second, more detailed and horrifying encounter. He described the specter as having a glowing face, but where her eyes should have been, there were only empty eye sockets, dark in the glowing face. This detail became a staple of the legend, and the reports were so unsettling that several staff members permanently left their positions at the hall. In the wake of this disturbance, the host, Lord Charles Townshend, admitted to his guests that he too had seen the family ghost on several occasions. A year later, the haunting attracted the attention of Captain Frederick Marryat, a decorated Royal Navy officer, inventor, and celebrated pioneer of nautical fiction. Marryat was a rationalist, and he suspected the ghost was an elaborate hoax perpetrated by local smugglers to frighten away people from their activities. Determined to debunk the story, he requested to spend the night in the room most associated with the sightings, where a portrait of Dorothy Walpole hung. His daughter, Florence Marryat, later published a vivid account of the experience. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the third, Marryat was accompanying 2 of the young Townshend men down a darkened corridor when they saw a figure approaching carrying a lamp. As the figure drew closer, Marryat recognized her costume and features as identical to the portrait of Dorothy Walpole. The encounter then took a malevolent turn. The ghost halted, held the lamp to her own face, and grinned in a malicious and diabolical manner at him. This enraged Marryat so that he raised his revolver and fired point blank at the figure. The bullet passed harmlessly through the ghost, which vanished instantly and lodged in a door on the far side of the corridor. Geez, imagine having that guy as a guest. These accounts show a clear pattern of folklore escalation. The story evolved from a simple sighting of a lady in a brown dress to a confrontation with a detailed and active malevolent entity. The escalation suggests that the narrative was being shaped through retelling, becoming more dramatic and memorable long before the photograph provided a visual example of the haunting. The credibility of a witness like Captain Marryat adds a layer of complexity. While his initial skepticism lends weight to his testimony, his status as a successful novelist and one who even wrote supernatural fiction such as The Phantom Ship is important to remember. It's impossible to know whether he was an objective observer shocked into belief or a master storyteller who dramatized his experience for maximum narrative effect. Adding to the legend was an account involving royalty, King George IV. During his stay at Raynham Hall, King George IV was reportedly so disturbed by the appearance of a little lady all dressed in brown with disheveled hair and a face of ashy paleness at his bedside that he immediately left the house, vowing to never return. Decades later, in 1926, the haunting was witnessed again by the family. The then Lady Townshend reported that her son and his friend saw the ghostly figure on the main staircase and clearly identified her with the portrait of Dorothy Walpole that hung in the house. For a century, the brown lady was a creature of folklore and eyewitness testimony. On a September afternoon in 1936, she was transformed into a global icon of the paranormal, captured in a single haunting photograph that would define her legacy. Captain Hubert Provin and Indre Shirva were at Raynham Hall on a professional assignment for the prestigious Country Life magazine. At approximately 4 p.m., they were setting up their equipment to take a second photograph of the hall's grand main staircase, when, according to Shear's account, he suddenly saw a vapory form gradually assuming the appearance of a woman descending the stairs towards them. Provin's hand was under the camera's dark focusing cloth at the moment of the sighting, and he saw nothing. Shear shouted an urgent command to take a picture. Provin quickly removed the lens cap from the camera, and Shear pressed the trigger for the flashbulb. When the negative was developed, the now famous image of a translucent, veiled figure on the staircase was revealed. The photograph and the photographer's account were published in the December 26, 1936 issue of Country Life magazine, and subsequently in the American magazine Life on January 4th, 1937. The image caused an immediate and widespread sensation. In an era still deeply influenced by spiritualism, the photograph was hailed by many as tangible, irrefutable proof of ghosts. It was believed that the camera could capture what the human eye could not, and here was physical evidence. Despite its later fame, the initial identification of the figure in the photograph was far from certain. In an often overlooked detail, the accompanying editorial in Country Life explicitly stated the image was not that of the brown lady. Shear himself referred to the apparition simply as the Raynham ghost. The owner of the hall at the time, Lady Townshend, who was a devout Catholic, offered an entirely different supernatural interpretation. She believed the figure was the Virgin Mary, knowing that she kept a private Catholic shrine directly beneath the staircase where the image was captured. Further, the visual characteristics of the photograph bear little resemblance to the detailed historical descriptions of the brown lady, who was said to be a lifelike figure in a brown dress, notable for her terrifying empty eye sockets. This shows a critical aspect of the phenomenon. The photograph's identity as the brown lady was not an immediate observation, but something that was interpreted retroactively. A existing legend was grafted onto the ambiguous photograph. The photograph became the brown lady because the story was too compelling for it to be anything else. The timing of the publication also raises questions. The image appeared in the Boxing Day issue of Country Life in 1936, the same year that a book titled True Ghost Stories featuring the Brown Lady as its principal tale was written by Townsend herself. This has led some to characterize the event as a publicity stunt, designed to put the historic house back on the cultural map. Following this publication, the photograph of the Brown Lady was subjected to intense scrutiny from both believers and skeptics. While it convinced many, a close technical analysis reveals significant evidence of fakery and raises serious questions about those involved. The leading skeptic theory is that the image is not a single capture, but a composite, most likely a double exposure or superimposition of two separate negatives. Investigators John Fairley and Simon Welfare have examined the photo and identified several telltale signs of this technique. They noted a pale line above each stair tread and a patch of reflected light at the top of the banister that appears twice, which suggests that one image had been overlaid over the other. Another theory is the Virgin Mary statue theory. This theory provides a specific subject for the second superimposed image. Critics argue that the figure in the photograph closely resembles a standard statue of a Virgin Mary, the type that would be found at a Catholic church. They point to the figure's veiled head, the appearance of hands clasped in prayer, the inverted V shape of the outer garment, and a visible square pedestal at the base of the figure. This strongly suggests that the ghostly image is a simple superimposition of a photograph of a Madonna statue onto the photograph of the empty staircase. And there have been other mundane explanations that have been proposed. These include the possibility that Shira deliberately smeared grease or another substance on the camera lens in the shape of a figure, or that a light leak in the bellows of the old camera created the anomaly, or that a camera shake during long exposure of approximately 6 seconds caused a blur. The magician John Booth demonstrated that a visually similar ghost photograph could be replicated by naturalistic methods, simply by having a person covered in a bedsheet move down a staircase during an exposure. There's also credibility issues of Captain Pravin and Indra Shira. It turns out that Indra Shira was a pseudonym, a fact that the man behind it was unwilling to explain. And the name might have been borrowed from Madame Indra Shira, who was a moderately successful society psychic in the 1930s London, which suggests a pre-existing interest in the paranormal or a flair for the sensational. There's also a clear financial motive. Dr. Nandor Fedor, a psychic researcher who visited the Raynham Hall shortly after the event, expressed his opinion to Lady Townsend that Indra Shira is out to make capital of your ghost. And this suspicion was later substantiated when it was discovered that 8x10 prints of the photograph were being advertised for sale outside a chemist shop for 1 guinea each, a sum that was about 70 pounds in 2019. The photograph immediately attracted the attention of the era's leading paranormal investigators, resulting in conflicting conclusions. Harry Price, who was a paranormal investigator, interviewed Provan and Shira soon after the photograph was taken. He found their story compelling and could not shake their testimony. After examining the negative, he publicly declared it to be innocent of any faking. Price's endorsement was instrumental in lending the photograph an air of scientific credibility and was widely cited by believers. However, Price himself was a controversial figure, often seen as more of a showman than a scientist, and his own investigative methods have been frequently questioned. The Society for Psychical Research, which is an academic body, launched its own investigation in 1937, and its ultimate findings were skeptical. In 2006, researcher Alan Myrtle unearthed the original unpublished SPR file on the case in the Cambridge University Library, and this document concluded there is almost certainly a mundane explanation for the spectral image in the photo, citing potential light leaks or a camera shake during the long exposure as the likely causes. The intense debate of the photograph's authenticity is a classic case in confirmation bias in the battle of the experts. Believers saw the definitive proof. Skeptics saw a clear hoax. The persistent belief in the photograph's authenticity, despite the overwhelming arguments against it, demonstrates that the power of the story of the image outweighed the evidence. Whether an actual ghost or a clever fabrication, the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall has a permanent place in paranormal history, and her legacy is that of a cultural phenomenon, sustained by this single powerful image. The photograph is arguably the most famous and influential spirit photograph ever taken, and it has been endlessly reproduced in books, magazines, and documentaries, presented as the benchmark against which all other paranormal photos are measured. Legend has permeated popular culture, inspiring nonfiction books, podcasts, television segments, and even children's graphic novel that retell the story of Dorothy Walpole's tragic fate. And Raynham Hall is linked to its most famous resident. It's still the private home of the Townsend family, but the estate uses its haunted reputation to make money. It has become the destination for those interested in the paranormal, and it offers occasional ghost tours, capitalizing on the fame that the Brown Lady brought to its halls. The power of the tale of the Brown Lady is in the perfect confluence of a compelling, tragic backstory rooted in historical figures, a century of dramatic and escalating anecdotal evidence from witnesses, and a single, ambiguous image that has emerged at a time of peak public fascination with spiritualism and the occult. The photograph was a catalyst, transforming a regional English folktale into a global paranormal icon, and it provided tangible proof that transcended the nature of oral tradition, giving face to a formless legend. The brown lady endures as a ghost, whatever that means to you. Make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Make sure that you like and share this video. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and TikTok. My username is The Spooky Lawyer. If there is a spooky or disturbing story you would like me to cover, leave a comment and tell me about it. Or if you like the video, leave a comment and tell me about it. Or if you're feeling shy, send me an email. My email address is thespookylawyer@gmail.com. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a link in the description to buy me a coffee, so go ahead and buy me a coffee. Or you could become a member of the channel. For the $1.99 tier, you can get access to exclusive content, including exclusive videos, and access to my videos before they go public. I appreciate you considering this. I'm going to put the names of all the people who have donated to my channel here, and I'm going to put the names of all the people who are members of my channel here. Thank you all very much. You also support me by clicking like, sharing, and continuing to watch my videos. And I do appreciate that you watch my videos. And please stay spooky.